For those of you online, you can see a very exciting room in front of you, but you can't see us. So what I'll do is I'll just share my video. Now you can also see me at the front, and we'll move that around to our colleagues as well, who will be talking shortly. So welcome everyone to this session, and this is focused on cyberpolicy dialogues. The idea here is that we will be connecting different communities between research and practice, between technical and policy communities, and trying to do a little bit of interactive networking. So although you see 4 people up here on stage, this is not going to be us talking to you very much. It's going to be you talking to us and talking to each other, and ideally everyone online also talking to each other as well. So welcome, and thank you for joining this session. I'll talk a little bit about just the overall outline, and then we can get started. So this is being organized by Virtual Roots. My name is James Shires. I'm co-director of Virtual Roots. We're an NGO that focuses on research, education, and public engagement in cybersecurity and internet governance. I'll hand over now to introduce my co-organizer, Louise Marie Harrell.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Yes, great. Good. I'm Louise Marie Harrell. I am a researcher here at the Cybersecurity Program at the Royal United Services Institute, which is basically a very fancy name for a think tank based in London working on a range of different security and defense issues. And obviously, one of them is cybersecurity. And we conduct research and we also convene different sectors to discuss some of the domestic but also international policy challenges on cybersecurity. So it's lovely to be here, even if online this time, but it's great to see some familiar faces as well.
Thank you, Louise. And what we'll do is the following. Louise will say a little bit about RUSI's main program in this space, which is a global partnership on responsible cyber behavior. We will then turn to our key speaker. We are very pleased to have Corinne Kasher here from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs at Malta to give her personal perspective on crossing different communities. I will then ask you all to interact with us to fill out a few questions that we have online. So you can either use a QR code if you're here in person, or you can access a link to the quiz. And then we will break out into different rooms to try and unpack these questions in a little bit more detail. So those of you online will go into smaller groups, and those of you in the room will do so as well. You will be assisted very ably in this task by 2 of our co-hosts, Yasmin and Eric here, who will be going around and answering any questions, stimulating discussion based on their own extensive knowledge of this area. So Yasmin and Eric, thank you very much for helping out here. I will now stop here and hand the floor to Corinne for some opening remarks. I will also move my video so those online people can see her in person.
Thanks, James, and thank you everyone for being here. It's a real pleasure to be among you. My name is Corinne. I'm Deputy Director for Global Affairs at the Malta Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And the reason I'm here at the IGF Forum is precisely because of the fact that our government is currently sponsoring fellows to participate here in this IGF Forum. And the reason why we are sponsoring fellows to participate in this IGF Forum is because we are firm believers in the fact that cyber policy should not be restricted solely to governments, but that cyber policy should also incorporate different facets. It should incorporate industry, it should incorporate academia, it should incorporate civil society, and also it should incorporate researchers. So one of the main, let's say, tasks that we are currently conducting is to bridge the divides and also have the cyber researchers, cyber government officials interact more with each other. And from my personal experience, this is a very important task because when it comes to, for example, drafting national cyber strategies, it's important to have different ideas, not only restricted to what cyber policy is by government, but it's important to also factor in the research, the academia, the government, let's say, perspectives coupled with other partners. So I'm very pleased to be here today because this is exactly the culmination of what we wanted to be, a networking event where we discuss ideas, we discuss knowledge, where we impart information together and hopefully build up better cyber resilience as well amongst ourselves. I also wanted to outline that being a European Union member, Malta is also obliged by the regulation, the European Parliament and the Council to actually incorporate these different factors together. So we are actually obliged to also include so there's this policy of inclusiveness as well, and to include different communities. So it's also a part of our, let's say, EU membership or of our EU obligations to have these different perspectives come together. So that's what I wanted to say from my perspective, and I now hand over to you, James, again. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Corinne, and we'll go straight to Louise to talk a little bit about the global partnership.
Wonderful. Again, thank you very much. Just a year ago, some of us were together in Kyoto for the regional launch of the Global Partnership for Responsible Cyber Behavior, which is an initiative that we have established since 2022, actually, here at RUSI, with a purpose of bringing together the research community studying and engaging in topics related to responsible cyber behavior. And I think to be back at the IGF just really shows the importance of this space for us to be able to connect not only with other researchers, but most importantly, to make the most out of this multi-stakeholder community that the IGF has been nesting for decades now. And I just like to kind of echo a lot of what Corinne just said. The objective of the partnership is really to bridge part of that conversation, but most importantly, is to identify who's researching topics related to responsible cyber behavior. And I say responsible cyber behavior because it's not just about state responsibility in cyberspace, but it's really recognizing that we will only be able to have a proper conversation and we will only be able to develop a critical mass and critical thinking if we're able to identify those researchers that are based in different regions, right? And that has been our arduous task to identify researchers working in these topics from the different parts of the world. So we launched that. But I think the background for the conversation that we're having today, and I think it's a perfect, match between what we're doing over here at RUSI with the global partnership and what Virtual Routes is doing as well in terms of connecting also different communities. Because at this moment, as I think many of you are very familiar, it's been decades that the UN processes have been discussing the rules of the road for responsible state behavior, right? And while it is an important space that has developed norms and the recognition of how international law applies to cyberspace, even though only 32, 33 government entities, and I say government entities because 31 of them are actual member states and two of them are regional bodies, have publish their views on how international law applies to cyberspace. And that's all good. And that's important in terms of thinking about peace and stability in cyberspace. But these UN processes, they revolve very much around a particular modus operandi. And that includes the fact that it's very government centric, even though there's some participation of stakeholders, even though quite contested since the start of this latest process, the open-ended working group. And even though we see 193 countries represented there, it's still very much in the room a challenge of balancing two different poles. So US Western democracies on one side, and obviously, Russia, China, and a couple of others, right? And I think the debate here is to bring those different bits and pieces and these different countries, especially developing countries, to have a little bit more voice in those processes. And sometimes that is obfuscated by these broader strategic competition. I think another thing is that it's really focused on international peace and security, and much less so on other areas of thinking about like responsible cyber behavior, such as development and how it enables a lot of the conversation of states being able to be accountable as well as other stakeholders. Of course, there's some conversation around due diligence, but then it's still very limited to the language of this particular space. And I think, it also means limiting who can be in those rooms, right? Even though there's some accredited organizations that can attend the, let's say, open-ended working group on cybersecurity, we still see that there's a certain privilege to be in this room. You need to be accredited, you need to have the resources. So the whole point of this conversation, and it has emerged as part of this dialogue between us and virtual routes, really, to think about how can we actually look at other spaces within the UN system that actually already has that structure for us to facilitate a dialogue where we can bring these communities together, where we can leverage the knowledge and the research that others have been conducting in this field. How can we identify researchers within, let's say now, like within other regions? How can we understand other views of responsible cyber behavior beyond, let's say, just a very state-centric or just very related to these two poles, right? Right? Or just to like governments. And how can we think about responsibility as something that is encoded at the international level in these discussions, but at the regional level, the domestic level, and the operational level, thinking about how countries, how states, and how different actors justify kind of developing cyber capabilities, right? So I just wanted to really just really give a little bit of a glimpse at the background of where we are coming from as RUSI and our commitment to foster networking sessions such as these, but also our collaboration with Virtual Routes, which is also a member and a partner of the GPRCB. So I just wanted to welcome you all to the session, to thank the opportunity, and again, really gutted to not be able to be there, but very excited to what we're gonna learn from each other and also from the conversation that we'll have here online. So thank you very much, and sorry if I spoke a little bit too much, but looking forward to connecting with you.
Thank you, Louise. And that context was super important. So we're really glad that you could share that with us. What we're going to do now is we're going to move from the bit where we talk at you to the bit where you engage in a little bit of a Q&A to start with. So as you will all be able to see in person, there is now a Slido with 3 short questions on, right? So indulge us, please do fill out these 3 short questions to get a sense of who we have in the room and what you think the main challenges are. Annie, I believe, is going to share the link to this same Slido online for those participating in hybrid form, and I can see people are already filling it out, so maybe the online people are super quick, they've got their laptops already open. And we've broken this down into a few different communities. You could slice a pie in as many ways as you want, but this is how we've decided to look at civil society, academia, IGOs, government, industry, or other, of course. So very pleasingly, it looks like we have quite a similar mix of different attendees, so that's good. If there's everyone from one, one community, that might be a lesson in itself. So we are now changing results, and we can see that actually IGOs are representing the majority of people in the room, and Eric and Yasmin haven't even filled out the poll themselves. So technical community is unfortunately not listed, no, because we believe that technical people do come from industry, they come from government, and they come from civil society. So yes, technical community is an identity, but they also have affiliations in these different areas as well. So if you are, if you identify as technical, then also please list your organizational affiliation as well. So I will now go to the second question we asked you, which was, how often do you engage with people outside your main community? So we know there's a lot of IGO people in the room, there's some civil society, some industry, and how often do you talk to people from other communities? I like that this is going often, is the main response. We're seeing no one's first time in engaging with other communities is good, but you know, we would be welcoming that as well. Okay, so occasionally some responses. Some people are doing this all the time, but it looks like most people are doing this often, regularly, but not sort of, you know, day to day in their normal jobs. Maybe what we would expect in a multi-stakeholder internet governance environment. So that's question 2. That gives us, but also you, a sense of who else is in the room and how they see their sort of community interaction. So now we're going to go to kind of the most important question. This is the one that is going to frame your breakout sessions. So it's not a ranking, this is more of a word cloud. So what do you think are the main obstacles to greater cross-community interaction? Louise mentioned a few already, things like accreditation to key events, things like resources and participation, others coming out as well. So please fill in as many words as you would like to here as well. Don't feel you have to come up with additional words. You can also you know, double click or double down on the ones that are already there as well. I will give you a few more minutes to think about this. It's a little bit more of a challenging question than the first 2. And some really thought-provoking answers coming out already. Wow. I can still see a couple of people typing, so I want to give people the space to make sure we capture as many views as possible in terms of these obstacles. Just to take a quick poll of everyone in the room. Has everyone in the room filled out? You've filled out to your comfort, right? You put as much as you want to into the word cloud. I'm going to take that as a yes, and same for people online as well. Thank you very much for putting this through. Just a few. I already have a lot of responses thinking already, but I'm going to hold them back because I don't want to talk any more to you. I want you all to discuss this word cloud between yourselves, right? This is a networking session, not a presentation session. And so what we will do is break into different groups here, small groups in the room. We will go into breakout rooms online. For people online, Annie will be assigning you to breakout rooms. We're looking about 3 or 4 people per group. And then what we will do is spend 15 minutes just talking about these key points. You can pick one of them and really drill into that, say, what is the issue here? Why is this such an issue? So what are the reasons for that issue? And then most importantly, how can we overcome the obstacle, right? I really want everyone to get towards that solution part of the conversation in your groups as well. So I can already see 3 clear groups here, one on the left for me, one on the right, and one in the middle. If you obviously feel free to move around, feel free to make sure you want to have different communities involved in that group. And online, I hope you are also being assigned roughly equally as well. So that's it from me. I'll break now, and we'll come back in 15 minutes to hear your thoughts on these obstacles and how to overcome them, and in a way we'll reflect with our participants as well. So thank you very much, and we'll see you in 15 minutes. Thank you very much, everyone online. We will now reconvene in the main room. We will also bring our in-person participants together in the main room as well. I hope the conversations were fruitful. And I would like to invite our participants to reflect very briefly on the outcome of their discussions, which words they focused on, and most importantly, what solutions they found. How might we overcome these obstacles? And in order to give our in-person participants a chance to get their headphones on, I will start with our breakout room. We will have only a few minutes each, so please can one person from each group say a few words about the session, and then I will turn to Corinne for some, and maybe Louise as well, for some concluding thoughts. So would anyone like to intervene from our online breakout room?
I don't want to keep talking, but I mean, I just have to say, Akriti and Nurain, we had such a great discussion. So I don't know if they want to jump in and share a bit of what we discussed in our group. We talked a lot about silos. We talked a lot about lack of interdisciplinary momentum. Akriti or Nuraini, do you want to share? I don't know if they can unmute themselves.
Oh, I've been unmuted. Hello, hi. My name is Nuraini. We talked about silo earlier because I was from the policy side. I'm still part of the policy side. I work with the Ministry of Health, but now I'm in academia as a student. So one of the issues that I personally face is to propose my research topic on data governance, and I mean related to policy and regulatory matters as well, because the academic side they just don't really see how this topic would benefit their circle, their fraternity. Because by the way, I belong to the School of Informatics, so to them, I mean, in general, the students' research topic are usually about data and the analysis of data, but not really on the policy and regulatory matters. So that is one issue that I personally faced. And from my conversation with different stakeholders, like I was from the government side, they say that they know they need to do a regulation, they need to have a policy direction, but they're not really sure on how to do it because they don't understand the technical matters. When I talk to the industry, meaning the technical people, they are saying that they can design the services according to the regulatory requirements and according to the policies. We just have to tell them what to do and they can design accordingly. And then when I talk to the academic side, basically they're more interested in the ethics and the accuracy, reliability of such services. They don't really, because to them, the regulatory things should belong, the responsibility lies on the government. So there is a gap between all these three communities in terms of understanding each other, basically.
Thank you very much, and fascinating to hear. Not only is there a gap between the research and other communities, but even these research subjects. You know, the choice of topics, where they focus, really can enhance this problem as well. And hopefully, that's something that is definitely has a solution, right? Because we can redirect research in these ways. I'd like now to turn to. I'm going to very badly term this the group with Eric in, or Eric's group. So I'll come and give you the mic and give someone from that group the mic, and everyone will be able to hear their reflections from their discussions.
Yeah, my name is Mamadou Sombai. I'm from Liberia, West Africa. Um, what we have been experiencing and what we have been discussing is how different groups, whether it's government, civil society, IGOs, the silos, we can come together because some of us have problems in our country at a phase where we are really doing awareness. We don't have a clear-cut policy. So there's a learning curve for some of us so that how people can come together to come up with a clear policy or a clear regulation on how to set cybersecurity policy. These are things that hampering some of us in our country. So there is a learning curve. So we want to see, but somehow it boils down to the resources. Some countries have financial problem and how they can come together. And I mean, what assistance can be rendered to them so that they can develop a cybersecurity policy. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And that call for coming together both within a country and internationally to provide assistance is very well heard, and appreciate your intervention. The last group we had in person was over here. I'd like to invite someone to give some reflections. Please.
Thank you. So I hope you can hear me online. What we discussed in our group where, well, first of all, we pointed out how difficult it can be to get a visa for many people. So some of the participants pointed out that here at the IGF it has been slightly easier than in other forums, but still sometimes the chances of getting a visa in EU countries can be like around 20% for some of the participants. I think one of the major points that we valued from this conversation and this forum is the possibility to engage with people working on similar issues as we do, and hopefully to continue also these conversations either online if we're too far away, but also in person in next occasions. And I would also like to point out that, for example, in other multilateral forums, such as the Open-Ended Working Group, it also depends a lot on geopolitical tensions. So, for example, I work at the German Council on Foreign Relations, a think tank based in Berlin. And what we see is that sometimes the accreditation process can be rather difficult, or it can depend on vetoes from other countries. And that sometimes is kind of arbitrary in the sense that some similar organizations in Germany don't have the chance to participate because XYZ. So yeah, that sometimes we find ourselves in a privileged position when we are able to give our statements there, but that not everyone has the same chances. And that's kind of sad because I think that, for example, also at the OEWG, it's great to see the involvement of different stakeholders because sometimes we are the ones doing the research and providing, yeah, I would say impactful research on those conversations. So if you want to add something, other members of the group, please feel free to do so. No? Right? Yeah.
Thank you very much. That is very much appreciated. Before we turn to Corinne and Louise, I just want to highlight one issue that was discussed in this group that I was fortunate to be part of, which is language barriers, right? We had one attendee here from Chad who speaks French and Arabic and not English, and was nonetheless seeking to participate in what is here, unfortunately, an English language only forum. So I would like to invite her to say a little bit in another language on your reflections that you had throughout the group. لو سمحتيني زميلتي من تشاد ممكن تقولين شوي عن المشكلات وممكن الحل أيضا في حكومة الإنترنت. شكرا.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أنا فاطمة زهية حماد. أنا شغالة في وزارة البوسطة والاتصالات بجانب الحكومية. هناك في بلدنا تشات المشكلة حقت السيبر سيكوريتي. المشكلة هي المعدات لسه ما كافية، لكن الحكومة خطت استراتيجيات بالسيبر سيكوريتي. عندنا اللواء اللي هي تحكم في إذا فيها شيء كان في حماية الشعب. بعد ده المنظمة اللي هي الحكومة أدت المسؤولية اللي تخدم في السيبر سيكوريتي، هي ما عندها الإمكانية كافة، لكن هي تسوي توعية للشعب. الشعب الخشوته في الإنترنت ممكن أنتم تكونوا عندكم الرقم السري القوي لكي الحاز الهرمية لكي ما يشتغلوا ويشيلوا كل شيء وهم ينهبوا يخطوا في النت. دي المشكلة الأولانية. الحكومة إذا خلاص هي المسؤولية القايمة بالسيبر سيكوريتي، إذا عندها ممكن تخط المعدات الانفورماتيكية لكي تحمي كل شيء اللي يجي يخش في النت وفي البلد. دي تدول فلوس. إذا هم خلاص لقوا الفلوس ممكن ينفذوا. هم هسه قاعدين يشتغلوا مع اي تي هي بس القاعدة دربنا لحد أن لقينا الاستراتيجية، لقينا اللي هسه كلهم مستمرين مع الاي تي يسووا الخدمات لكي يلقوا الانفراستركتير الانفورماتيكية الكافية لكي تحمي بلدنا. لكن المشكلة الآخرة كمان في الحماية الفيزا والابليكيشن. إذا نادم يسافر ويمشي في تشات هناك وهو ما عنده التصريح الدخول ومشى بمكاتب ليس رسمية، هنا على طول عندنا الشرطة هي عندها حماية كافية، وهم كما يقبضوا عليك ويخطوك يودوك هم يسووا المحكمة الثانية. وبالنسبة هناك اللغات في التشاد عندنا لغة أدنان الفرنساوية والعربية والإنجليزية كلها فيها بسيطة. وفي كان نادم مشى في تشاد ومشى مثلا في المطار وهو ما عنده اللغات كافية ما في، لكن في بجوب لك مترجم. المترجم ممكن بيجي وبترجم عليهم هم، لكن في لغات تانية إننا عندنا علاقة كثيرة مع بلدان آخر كل بيجوا اللغات المثل الروسية الكذا يلا يجيبوا لك مترجم شيء آخر ما نقدر بس. وجزاكم الله خير وإحسان.
أشكرك جزيلا. أشكرك زميلتي esteemed. So, of course, just to say a little bit about those challenges facing a country where not only is a language a barrier to participation, you have visa applications, you have popular awareness of things like cybersecurity measures, and also ultimately government resources and money to contribute. Right? So, and unfortunately, the language barriers themselves have been demonstrated in this session. So in the last 5 minutes of the session, I would like to turn to Corinne and Louise to give a few concluding reflections on the thoughts. Thank you all for your participation.
Yes, just a few remarks. I think I don't have a lot more to add than what the participants actually stated. I thought I was very pleased to hear what they said. They were all very, very valid points, and they are really food for thought also from me, coming from perspective of government. I think for me, I see two things. One is the fact that coming from government, I see that very often decision-making at the highest level, for example, at the UN, is really sort of the privilege of governments. And I don't only say that in the realm of cyber. I've seen it in the negotiations, for example, on oceans. And therefore, this is not just something that is restricted to cyber policy. It's also in other policy areas. And also at the, let's say, national level, so going from the multilateral, but also to the national level, what I see is that the government there's this culture where government thinks that it owns policy. And so whenever we are coming up with a strategy, for example, not enough research, not enough evidence by academia or by industry is fed into the sort of strategy document, for example. So what I see is that when we're coming up with a policy position, very often it's taken by government, but it's not does not include the different perspectives of the other players. And I think it's really important to bring everybody on board, and this is what we are trying to do. And just not to take up a lot of time, because I know Louise is also wanting to say some remarks, but on the issue of funding, we're very, very well aware of that. And one of the things that my government has been doing is we are funding, for example, when it comes to negotiations at the UN level, we fund countries, we fund also governments, we sponsor, let's say, least developed countries, delegates who cannot travel, who cannot participate, and we fund them so that they are also included in the process, apart from funding also fellows, academia, and researchers, because we believe it's very important that we continue to fund these different, let's say, stakeholders, so that their ideas and their knowledge is fed into the process. I think it's very important. So that's all I can say from my end. But I think Louise has a little bit more to say as well from her end.
Thank you. And Louise, we have already had a sign saying, please wrap up. So if you could summarize in 1 minute, that would be much appreciated.
Absolutely. And I mean, not going to take up time. And Kareem definitely said a lot of what I was going to say. I just wanted to thank you all for the contributions and the thought-provoking kind of like discussions. The one thing that I would stress, though, is this point on usually in these conversations, be it at the IGF, even at the UN, we're talking about how to ensure that cross-stakeholder representation is more effective, right? But I think the lesson that I'm taking from this dialogue today is within our respective stakeholder groups, how can we make it more representative? How can we build those bridges within our respective sectors, right? And that is something that Akriti and our group mentioned within like civil society. You can always pressure and do advocacy to make other spaces more representative, but are you as an organization actually walking the talk of making your staff more diverse, of ensuring that you have equity and ensuring that you are sensitive to the different, let's say, regional representation within your team? So I think that is the key takeaway for me from our conversation here today. And thank you again, and thanks, James, for holding the fort and for the wonderful session. So yeah, thanks all for the contributions.
Thank you, Louise. Thank you, Corinne. Thank you, Annie, Eric, and Yasmin for facilitating with us. Thank you, everyone online and in person. Shukran jazilan, and have a great rest of your day.